I remember watching the great legacy characters back in the golden era of soap operas, women who fought tooth and nail to protect their children from the mob and the WSB without resorting to cold-blooded murder. Now, looking at what Carly and Drew are allegedly cooking up for Jack, I have to ask what happened to character integrity. Back then, if a mother wanted to stop her daughter from making a mistake, she did it with fierce love and confrontation, not by plotting a calculated hit on a federal agent. We have survived countless regime changes and wild storylines over the past 30 years, but this impending tragedy feels entirely different. If Carly truly joins forces with Drew to put Jack in the ground, we are witnessing the absolute destruction of the protective mother archetype we once admired. If you ask me, the beauty of long-term storytelling is watching these people grow, stumble, and eventually find their way back to the light. But lately, it feels as though the writers are pushing our beloved residents of Port Charles into a darkness from which they may never return. Carly has always been a force of nature, a woman who would tear down the world to keep her family safe. We have watched her navigate life as half of a legendary super couple, make countless mistakes, scheme, and manipulate, but it was always rooted in a desperate, sometimes misguided, maternal love. To think that she is now sitting in the shadows, calmly calculating the murder of Jack, is a chilling departure from the woman we have known for decades. It is one thing to threaten an enemy in a fit of passionate rage. It is entirely another to meticulously plan an assassination. This level of cold, premeditated violence strips away the character integrity that has kept us rooting for her through all her trials and tribulations. My dear friends, the theory that is currently keeping me awake at night is the terrifying possibility that Drew and Carly are the secret, lethal alliance behind the impending demise of Jack. We all know that Jack is walking on borrowed time, and his death seems almost inevitable given the dangerous, high-stakes games he has been playing with the residents of our town. However, what truly fascinates and horrifies me is the identity of the execution. If this hypothesis holds true, it would easily go down as one of the most monumental and devastating twists in the entire history of the WSB. We are not just talking about a simple revenge killing executed by a random thug. We are talking about two legacy characters who have completely lost their moral compass, joining forces to dismantle a federal agency's operation from the inside out. The sheer audacity of this plot is staggering, and it speaks volumes about how far these two have fallen into the abyss of desperation and anger. Let us first examine Drew and his deeply rooted motivations for wanting Jack permanently erased from the board. Drew has a very clear, undeniable motive. He knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jack is the mastermind who manipulated Willow and Nina, providing them with the exact leverage they needed to force his hand. Because of Jack, Drew was backed into a suffocating corner, forced to yield to a blackmail agreement that he absolutely despises. We have seen Drew swallow his pride and his burning anger, simply because he lacked the evidence and the power to strike back immediately. But anyone who has watched this man knows that his silence is not a sign of forgiveness. It is the quiet before a devastating storm. Drew is biding his time, letting the rage simmer just beneath the surface until the perfect moment presents itself. In Drew's mind, Jack is the architect of his current misery, the man who handed his enemies the keys to his destruction. Therefore, it makes perfect, chilling sense that Jack would become the very first target on Drew's revenge manifest. Before he even begins to settle his massive debts with Nina and Willow, he must cut off the head of the snake. We are witnessing the tragic unraveling of a man who was once celebrated as a hero. The Drew we knew would have sought justice, perhaps even a fair fight. This new, hardened version of Drew is willing to resort to covert murder to reclaim his power. He wants to watch Jack fall, not just to eliminate a threat, but to send a terrifying message to anyone who dares to manipulate his life. It is a heartbreaking shift in character, a descent into villainy that leaves me mourning the honorable man he used to be. On the other side of this deadly coin, we have Carly, whose motivations are entirely different but equally dangerous. Carly is not driven by blackmail or a bruised ego. She is driven by the primal, all-consuming terror of losing her child. Jack is the man who lured Jocelyn into the treacherous web of the WSB. We have watched Carly beg, plead, and demand that Jack release her daughter from this life of espionage, only to be met with smug refusals. To make matters infinitely worse, Jocelyn has looked her mother directly in the eye and lied, claiming she had walked away from the agency while secretly continuing her dangerous work. For Carly, this is not just a case of a rebellious daughter refusing to listen. It is a matter of life and death. She truly believes that Jack is dragging Jocelyn deeper into a fatal underworld, a world that has already claimed too much from their family. If you ask me, Carly's maternal instincts have become dangerously warped by her fear. She has convinced herself that as long as Jack is breathing, Jocelyn will never be safe. Therefore, She has reached a terrifying, extreme conclusion. Jack must die, and the WSB's grip on Port Charles must be shattered permanently. By eliminating Jack, Carly hopes to sever the head of the agency's local operations, effectively destroying the very foundation of Jocelyn's new career. She believes that the profound shock and the sudden loss of her recruiter and mentor will force Jocelyn to abandon the spy life forever. It is a deeply twisted logic, born from the mind of a mother who is so desperate to save her child that she is willing to damn her own soul in the process. She is plotting a murder disguised as an act of maternal protection. However, plotting an assassination against a high-ranking WSB official is not a task for the faint of heart, nor is it something that can be accomplished alone. Both Drew and Carly possess formidable resources, but they also have numerous dangerous enemies watching their every move. Jack is not a man who can be easily outsmarted or overpowered. A solo attack by either Drew or Carly would almost certainly end in failure and their own imprisonment. This is exactly why I suspect that these two, despite their incredibly complex and often fraught history, have secretly joined forces. They have recognized a mutual necessity. Drew brings the tactical expertise and the cold, calculated rage, while Carly brings the ruthless determination and the financial resources. Together they form an unholy alliance, bound by a shared, singular goal. Jack must be erased from existence. What truly terrifies me as a veteran viewer is the realization that this will not be a crime of passion. Drew and Carly are not going to act in a moment of heated anger. Instead, they are likely spending hours in the shadows, meticulously crafting a highly detailed, foolproof plan. I suspect they will use the WSB's own intricate network against Jack, weaving a web of deception so thick that he will never see the blade come. They could easily fabricate a scenario that leads Jack to believe he is embarking on a standard, albeit dangerous mission. He will walk into the trap completely unaware, only to find that every single exit has been permanently sealed. Drew has the motive for vengeance, Carly has the desperate need to protect Jocelyn, and together, they are orchestrating a flawless execution. It is a chilling testament to how far they are willing to go. The fallout from this hypothetical assassination will be nothing short of catastrophic for everyone involved. This explains perfectly why Jack's death would trigger an unprecedented crisis within the WSB. If a man of his stature and rank is murdered in cold blood on domestic soil, the agency will not simply sweep it under the rug or write it off as a hazard of the job. Z, the formidable head of the WSB, will undoubtedly launch a massive, scorched earth investigation that will tear through the town like a hurricane. Z will demand answers, and he will not rest until the perpetrators are brought to a swift and brutal justice. The sheer scale of the impending investigation will cast a dark, suffocating shadow over everyone we love. The town will become a hunting ground, and the tension will be absolutely unbearable as Z's elite agents turn every stone, hack every camera, and interrogate every suspect in their relentless pursuit of the truth. But here is where the theory takes a turn into pure, unadulterated cruelty. The most dangerous aspect of this entire plot is the position it puts Jocelyn. Because she is directly connected to Jack and actively working for the WSB, she will instantly become a person of interest in the investigation. In fact, I harbor a dark suspicion that Drew and Carly might intentionally leave behind subtle, misleading clues that point the finger directly at Jocelyn. Why? Because Carly wants Jocelyn out of the agency at any cost. What better way to ensure her daughter is expelled from the WSB than to make the agency believe she was involved in her mentor's demise? Jocelyn would not only lose Jack, but she would also face the immediate destruction of her spy career, effectively achieving Carly's ultimate goal. It is a betrayal so profound that it makes my heart ache just thinking about it. Imagine the sheer devastation Jocelyn will experience when this all unfolds. She will be mourning the loss of a man who believed in her, who saw her potential and recruited her into a world where she felt powerful and capable. As she grapples with that profound grief, she will suddenly find herself squarely in the crosshairs of Z's ruthless investigation. The very organization she dedicated herself to will turn against her, treating her as a rogue agent or a traitor. She will be isolated, terrified, and fighting for her freedom, completely unaware that the architects of her nightmare are her own mother and a man she once considered family. The psychological toll this will take on a young woman is unimaginable, and it breaks my heart to see a legacy character subjected to such manipulation by her own flesh and blood. The true climax of this dark storyline will not be the murder itself, but the inevitable moment when the truth finally claws its way into the light. Can Drew and Carly truly hope to keep a secret of this magnitude hidden forever? In this town, secrets are like ghosts. They always come back to haunt the living. When Jocelyn inevitably discovers that her own mother and Drew were the ones who murdered Jack and framed her, the emotional explosion will be catastrophic. She will be forced into an impossible, soul-crushing choice. Does she protect the family that betrayed her, or does she side with the WSB to deliver justice? This revelation will completely obliterate the sacred mother-daughter bond. Carly's desperate attempt to save her daughter will be the exact catalyst that drives Jocelyn away forever, turning her into an enemy. That, my friends, is the ultimate tragic twist. As I sit here and reflect on these dark possibilities, I am reminded of why I have dedicated so many decades of my life to this incredible show. Even when the storylines take a turn into the macabre, even when our beloved characters make choices that shatter our hearts and test our loyalties, the emotional resonance remains unparalleled. We may not agree with the path Carly and Drew are walking, and we may mourn the loss of the honorable traits they once possessed, but we cannot deny the gripping, edge-of-your-seat drama it provides. This potential alliance, born of vengeance and warped love, promises to shake the very foundations of our beloved town. I will be watching every single moment, holding my breath, and hoping that somehow the light will eventually find its way back to these lost souls. Until then, we veteran fans will remain steadfast, anchored by our unwavering passion for the greatest drama on television.